Hey Tankers, Bonsai Duck here. Today we're going to have a tank review on the CS-53. Now, the CS-53 is the Tier 8 model line portion of the Polish mediums that came out with the 1.10. They branched off at the 14 TP line, so let's take a look at that, right? So 14 TP branched off into the mediums. I just free experienced my way through these up to the Tier 8. I really didn't have any desire to play the lower tiers, although I do hear the CS-44 is a fun tank, so I might go back and get that one. I started the CS-53, and as you can see, I've already achieved the CS-59. But the CS-53 was surprising to me when I first took it out, we'll get into that when I go through the stats and kind of show you some of the gameplay. So what we're going to do is we'll compare it to other tanks in its line and its type. There's some subtle little things that you might want to think about, and I'll show you those, and then some gameplay, and then I'll give you my thoughts on the CS-53. So let's get started. Okay, so the CS-53, obviously Polish medium Tier 8. Let's find out a little bit about the tank. So in the first half of the 50s, the Military Technical Academy of Warsaw was developing several projects of medium tanks. These projects were greatly influenced by the Soviet tank building. I wonder why. During the development process, the Polish experts adopted the technical and configuration concepts used in the experimental and mass-produced Soviet T-54 tank. This tank existed only in blueprints. So a couple things to note. From the Tier 7 to the Tier 8, you have a crew change, right? Well, you have the same amount of crew, but a skill changes. So in the Tier 7, the commander is your radio operator. In the Tier 8, it becomes your loader. Okay. So if you do move your crews through tanks, you're going to run into that, because I think at the Tier 9 it goes back. So anyway, I used to do that, move my crew with my tank, so I always had a really good crew in the tank that I was grinding. I've since gone back, and I might still do that, and I did that in this tank. I took it from the Tier 8 to the Tier 9, and then went back and put a new crew in my Tier 8 and improving it. And that's generally what I'll do. I'll move the crew to the new tank, and then I'll go back and put another crew in and grind that tank, to build that crew. But so I mean, there's some other things to note about this tank, but that's one that you want to keep an eye on. I don't know why Wargaming decided to do that, but they did. Now we're going to look at the comparison, but the first thing I want to bring to your attention is you can see how low profile this tank is compared to, say, the FV-4202 or the Type 59, right? Or even the Progetto. And the reason that is I am currently running the Tier 7 turret on my tank. And I'll explain that in just a moment, so we'll go through it. But, you can see that it's got the definite almost 432, the LT 432 look to it, even though it's a medium. So in the comparison, you'll see I've brought it in with all the standard tanks in the tier. There's no premiums here. Reason being is obviously premiums have adjusted values, and you really don't get a good comparison. You're going to probably play at Tier 8. You're going to play against a lot of premiums, don't get me wrong. But, it just kind of gives you a better idea. We'll notice that I have two CS-53s listed here. One has all the top equipment on it, so you can see it has a Tier 8 turret, whereas the other one has the Tier 7 turret. All the tanks are configured with, 100% crew, no perks, no nothing, and they all have top equipment. Okay, so as we look across the board, let's compare the first two, so you know what you gain and lose if you decide to not use the top turret. You do not have to use the top turret to get the top gun. All right, you can stay at that turret if you don't want to spend the money or don't want to grind the XP or whatever. You can stay at that first turret, the Tier 7, and go ahead and get the big gun. That's currently how I have mine built, and honestly, I even though I don't have any replays for it, I find that with the smaller turret, I'm not getting hit as often in the turret, and I'll show you that when I bring up my tanks GG. But as we can see, the difference between the two right off the bat is concealment, because obviously it's a lower profile tank. All right, the second one has the tier 7 turret on it. But otherwise across the board, you are taking some hit in armor, obviously, minus 30 millimeters, and you're going to get a little advantage in the speed or the weight of the tank. So there's some pluses and some minuses to running the smaller turret. Like I said, that's a personal preference. I just noticed when I had the big turret on it, man, that was just a huge target for people. But comparatively across the board with the other tier 8s, we can see that 300 alpha gun, which except for the T-34-2, which is again got the biggest gun on, so that's the 122, and the same with the T-44. Now you may or may not run those guns on those tanks, and that's again a personal preference. We can see that it's got a good hitting gun. Reload time, it's not bad. It's not as bad as say the T-44, for some reason right now. But that big gun doesn't. I wouldn't play the T-44 with the 122. I would play with the 100, right? But we can see that the 122 is obviously throwing a bunch of reload, and then even if you bring in the big gun on the TVP VTU, which is just a painful tank to grind in the first place, you're going to have a reload issue. But across the board, it's not too far off from the rest of the group. In Traverse, again, it's not terrible. Dispersion, dispersion, 0.36 at 100 meters, but you can see that it's right in there with the mix. And all these tanks are standard, no crew skills, no nothing. So this is just out of the box with the top equipment. Bam, there you go. Hit points, 1,300 hit points. So again, right in the middle. Weight, it's not too heavy. I mean, it's not, the weight and load limit. Engine power, 710. It's got good engine power. Specific, kind of goes down a little bit, but it's not too bad. Top speed of 50. All right. I don't know if I ever got it that high. Honestly, do not know. But it's in the upper portion of the speed. So all the stats are starting to look, they're looking pretty good, and you're going, hey, well, this, what's up? Camouflage, but we really don't worry about that. Now, view range right out of the bat, 380. Except for the Pershing and the Centurion. I mean, and let's take the STV, or STA, which all those tanks tend to sit up, right? And the turrets are forward, and pretty much, it does fairly well. So statistically speaking, if you look at just the stats across, you would say, okay, this tank, looks like it does fairly well. Now let's go back and look at that turret situation, right? So here's the tier 8 turret, and here's the tier 7 turret. And as you can see, there's a noticeable difference. A little bit more sloped, obviously, which gives you these cheeks. Whereas this is a little more rounded, obviously lower profile. You have the big honking commander's viewport up here, which is just a pinata. And these cheeks are just pinatas. Pretty much. So, like I said, I found that in the lower tier turret, I'm lower, and I have to. I'm less of a target. Whereas this thing coming up over a hill where you want to use the 8 degrees of depression, they're spotting this thing before the guns even come up, right? So by the time the gun comes up, you're they've already seen that, and they're taking shots at you. So it's, I'm in no way advocating that you run the lower turret. That's a personal preference, but it does lower the total profile of the tank. So, and you do get a little speed increase, so maybe you can get to that 50 kilometers. But so that's pretty much, stat wise. It's not a huge separation. All right, so There's got to be something else in there because honestly, this tank just didn't, to me, didn't feel like it was performing very well. So we'll take a look at some replays, and then I'll give you my final thoughts. All right, so for this first game, we are on Fjords in a standard battle in a Tier 8, Tier 7, Tier 6 game, so a top tier medium. None of these games I'm going to show you are just knock your socks off extraordinary. I didn't have any of those games in this. It always felt like I was pushing this tank to perform. I'm not sure why, and you know, I play a lot of mediums, so I generally have a fairly good understanding when I'm in the right zone and playing worth of crap, you know, on how to play the mediums and on the maps and stuff like that. But this tank, I always just felt like I was pushing it to perform. So we spawned over in the east, and I'm coming up to the hill, and we'll go from there. So it's fairly sprightly, like I said. I'm averaging 45 to 50 kilometers here, and I get over here. Now you'll see I do have the large turret on here, so I move over and spot a 20 STRV M4257 and a VK3002D, and I bounce both of their shots. And obviously is a upper tier medium, and this thing is just, it doesn't have the speed that I would like to see in it. I feel more like a soft heavy in this game. And as you'll see, I'm playing with a lot of smaller tanks that are much more mobile and moving around much quicker. The velocity on the shells is not great. I mean, AP, we have what, a 300 alpha with a 212 penetration. If I fire the heat, you know, I'm up to 290. And as you can see, I take some damage from those guys, the VK3001P, and obviously some tracking damage from the E25. And then, of course, the buggy hits me and tracks me. So, having to be careful. That's the one thing I've learned in this tank, is you can't rely on the speed to get you out of trouble. You can't rely on the armor to sustain if you're in a bad situation. And the gun's not going to pop off and give you some type of miracle snapshot. I'm not seeing it. But if you can get into a position where you can use your depression, such as this, you know, where you can use that 8 degrees. We'll back out here. Where you can use that 8 degrees of gun depression, then you're going to be in a spot where you're going to be able to make this tank work better for you. So it is definitely a second, you know, even sometimes maybe even a third line support tank. At tier 8. The tier 9 that I've seen so far, I can be a little bit more aggressive with. But anyway, we spot the E25, and I'm able to put a nice hit on him. A bit of a high roll. There's another one. You know, so I've taken a chunk out of the E25. Again, the 8 degrees of gun depression are nice, and if you can use those without that big honking turret popping up and getting shot first, you know, you're going to enjoy it. Take a shot from the E25 as I'm driving along. Not even sure what I was shooting at there. Speed it up here because I do a lot of wandering around, and that's the one thing I was saying. I felt like I was chasing the battle a lot of times. Part of that is it was my play, and the other part of that is just this thing just doesn't seem to have the speed. Like I said, I always felt like I was pushing it. Don't get a piece of the Hummel. There's the VK3002D. And we get a little chunk of him. And then nothing. And that's pretty much it. I'm not going to get anything after that. So go to the gameplay real quick. So as you can see, not a spectacular game. Nothing to write home to mom about. You know, 1,524 in damage, no kills. You know, 8 shots fired, 5 hit, 5 penetrated. You know, again, I did get some spotting damage, and that there's one thing is, I mean, as a medium, it does do fairly well on the spotting. You know, not an overly expensive tank. You know, I did get some action mission payouts, stuff like that. So you know, that game went pretty well. So let's look at game number 2. All right, so for this game, we find ourselves on Siegfried line in an assault in a tier 10, tier 9, tier 8 battle, so low tier medium. Now, I've already learned enough in this tank at this point to know that I am not going to be a frontline brawler in this thing. It's just not going to happen. I've got to use my gun depression and the speed as much as I can get out of it, and you know, try to snipe. I mean, that's what I've got to do. You know. So anyway, we spawned in the city. Obviously, we're on the defense. I'm following the T-95 chieftain over here, and luckily he came over here. I took a circuitous route to get where I'm at, so he's way ahead of me. So, and he's obviously taking on the STRB 103B, and that tank it has the gun depression to do that. So, anyway, I'm getting over here where I can hopefully get some shots, use my gun depression, maybe get some shots into the back of people, the heavies, as they're trying to move up there. Not finding anything at this point. And then the chieftain makes he makes a run. He's going over. He's moving over here, which honestly never occurred to me until I saw him do it. And I was like, why hadn't I thought about this before? Because what this is going to do, it's going to allow me to use my gun depression. So I immediately say, okay, fine, I'm going with you. I figure, you know, a chieftain, he can give me some support. I can be a support to him. So we move over here. He immediately takes care of the arty. Alright, we spot a 60 TP. He's moving up. Alright, so do I have a shot on that guy? Yes, I do. Alright, but it's not a great shot. Well, yeah, because he's behind the building. I mean, I don't even have a shot in the rear end. But we'll let it play here for a little moment, and I'm going to show you some of the... Alright, so as we look, you see I'm able to use my gun depression. Alright, now I'm going to move into the free camera here because I want you to see what is up with this. Alright, let's move over. Alright. So as you can see, I mean, even though it looks like I'm using my gun depression fairly well, you can see that my turret is just up in the air, and I'm already spotted. I haven't even fired yet, and I'm already spotted. So these guys are able to spot me fairly quickly, all right, because I have to come up so far to use my gun depression, because of my up, there we go, because of my turret here, because of the spotting, all right. Anyway, get a shot into the 60 TP and fall back. Coming up, I see there's a mill. Oh, no penetration there. There's Artie. Alright, so where did the 140 get me? Right here in the turret. Right there in the turret. You can see, just punched right through it. Okay? So that's the issue that I have with this tank, is I couldn't use my depression without getting popped in the turret. All right, well, The chieftain's still kicking butt over there, so I'm going to play this and see what I can do. Use my gun depression, which is what is very helpful here. So I'm able to put a critical on the 140, and that's all I can do here. Is just play, you know, support. Pop up, get a shot. There's a blind shot into the 140, and you'll see as soon as I pop up over that hill, I'm getting spotted. And the only reason I didn't get spotted on that one, that I can assume, is the 140 had pulled back. Or he didn't have good vision on me, because he had to be the one spotting me. There's a shot into the Emil, but I don't think I got anything on him. 140's coming back across. And sure, as soon as I get high enough where you can see me. Now that may have been the Sinilac, but I have a feeling it was still the 140. All right, so we got a Sinilac over here, and I got to be careful with him. Rocking around because Artie's already tapped me a couple times here. He hasn't yet. He will. There's the 140 again. Oh, just behind him and fire, and I get spotted, but that's fine. There's a little chunk off the 140. Alright, so we got popped by the 140 again. Where did he get us? Yep, right there in the turret, number 2. There's number 1. There's number 2. Now, if I back out here, I mean, as we can see, I'm trying to use my gun, a hold down position, gun depression, but that the turret, like I said, the tier 8 turret just, ugh. Can you tell it frustrated me? And I mean, he wasn't even hitting me in the hard spot like this spot. All right, so doing a little rocking back and forth. Obviously, we're able to make things work. The mill, I think, is looking for the chieftain over there. I'm waiting for that 140 to show up again. There he is. He's gotten spotted. Obviously, I didn't have a good crew, a really good crew, because I don't have a lot of good spot or vision on this one. That 40 AMX M4 moves him out a little bit. I'm able to take a piece off the 140 while his back's to me. He has to pull back, and I'm able to finish him off. And I'm not going to get any more out of that one because they all tear up the T30. So, but you know, not bad. Some good credits, some good experience. You know, 1297. I got a kill out of it. Shots 12, 9, and 5. So not too bad. You know, still made some decent credits, made some experience. So let's see what the final replay's like. Alright, so for the final battle, we're on Ensk in an encounter battle in a tier 9, tier 8 game. So again, bottom tier, medium. And this is from the get-go, just so you can see the speed in which I don't have. So let's go. So I'm taking off. The T-44's got a little more speed than I do. You know, obviously the Link 6x. And you know, I'm in normal speed here, right? So cruising along, the Link 6x gets over there, the other CS-53 gets over there. Here comes the T-44-100. Okay. So they've all kind of taken that hill, and I'm a little leery of taking that spot, right? Because by this time I have learned that this tank just doesn't hold up very well. But I see the Oods is moving over there, the Ood 16 moving over there with the CS-53 on their side. I'm going to be able to creep up here. He's got the smaller turret, it looks like. So I get a nice shot into him. Just a bit of a high roll. Gonna pop up again. Nope, he's down. Okay, so object 432. I know he's back there somewhere. And I believe that wall's can shoot that wall down, and obviously you can. So open that up for the guys. We got an M46 KR over here. I'm able to sneak a shot into him. Another bit of a high roll. Nothing spectacular. Just nothing that makes you jump out and say, wow, I really want this tank. But it's teaching me patience. Alright, so nothing there. Not getting any shots. Our team in the city is getting beat up. We have a lot of beef over here. Alright. Well, I am playing cautious. Like I said, I'm learning to play this tank as a second to third line support. Take the sniper shots when I can. We got an SU-130 over here. T-44. Zoom in, put a little shot into his turret. That's not bad. 313, another bit of a high roll. Totally just whiffed the 130p. Alright, so at this point, obviously you can turn around and go back and defend base or stay with the herd. So I decided to stay with the herd. And you can they're just peeling away from me. They're moving along. I take some circuitous route. The 257, I don't know what I'm doing. So we're going to speed up here. So now we've got him. Alright. Got a Renegade over here. There goes a T-44. There's a T-44-100. He takes a shot. And did he not have a shot at the other guys? Did he wait for me to come out there? But he pops me right there in the turret. Right there in the turret. I mean, the turret on this thing is the pinata target for this tank. At least with that top tier turret. Alright, so did a critical on the Renegade and he's down. Now we got the 257, which I really don't want to mess with. And the 430. So I picked the lesser of two evils and moved towards the 430. Both of them going to be trollish armor. 430's coming in. And I get a critical hit on him. But luckily he takes a shot at the T-44. Good side shot on him while I'm driving, so I did get a drive-by on him. That worked well. Got another shot into him. And that was a win. Let's take a look at the game. Alright, so like I said, nothing spectacular. All three of these games was nothing spectacular, right? I mean, it's just, I don't know, average. But, I am an average player. 1,500 in damage, 638 in experience. 11 shots were fired, 7 hit, 5 of those penetrated. 617 from 300 meters out. Made some decent credits, made some decent experience. So now I'll give you my final thoughts. All right, so the final thoughts on the CS-53. Well, it's enjoyable. I find it to be a fun, well, I can't even say it's really a fun tank. Out of the line, from what I understand, like I said, I haven't played the 7, but from what I've heard from people who have, the 7's pretty good. I am enjoying the tier 9 right now, and the tier 10 is supposed to be a really nice tank. I think in every line you have one tier that's just a hard grind, a hard tank to move along, to get through. And I think at this tier, the CS-50 in this line, the CS-53 is that tank. It's just a tank that's it's just going to be a long grind. And I can't quite put my finger on it other than, the turret issues, with it being a pinata. But even with the lighter turret, even though I gain a little bit more power to weight and and maybe lose some view range and stuff, I still have to chase after the game. It feels like the speed of the tank isn't there. The reaction of the tank isn't there. It's just a painful grind. I'll keep playing it. I just have to learn to play. It's one of those things that you've got to learn to play this in the right spot. If you look at the French mediums, like the 30, that's a tank. I mean, big old turret on the top, big old tumor on the turret, and you just got to learn to play it. And it took time for me to learn to play that tank. But now that I've learned how to play it and how to use it into its advantages, I really enjoy running it. So I might find that with the CS-53. I might not. It might just be one of those tanks where it's not as bad as a TVP VTU. But where it sits in the garage, it'd be interesting to see what the premium is going to be like compared to these two, and when that comes out, I'll be happy to show that. But it's I don't know. It's going to be. I think it's going to be painful for a lot of people. The good thing is, like I said, you move to the tier 9, which so far has been really good. I had maybe see what my record is on this. I'm a 50%er at 24 games. Nothing. Again, the stats, my damage stats don't jump out. They don't scream. They don't go, "Woo! Look at me." It's just not there. And again, it's 24 games, and this is a quick and dirty review. I'm sure as I play it more, I might get better. I might get worse. I'm at 50% with it. Maybe I call it quits. But it's like I said, it's going to be a rough grind. So I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think. If you have any input, give me your thoughts back on it. But that's my review of the CS-53. It's a tank you're going to have to grind through. Use the gun depression. Realize that you're not going to be a frontline brawler, or even you're not. You just can't hang with the heavies too much. You don't have the speed to really get around the map quickly. So it's kind of a sniper tank, to be honest with you. At least in my opinion, and that's the average Joe review. So anyway, if you liked the video, hit the like button. Keep those videos coming. I greatly appreciate it. This is Bonsai Duck out.